Welcome back to TTC. Today we take a look at what appears to be Amazon itself's first stab at making an actual tool brand, Denali. Should well-established brands be shaking in their respective boots at this affordably priced new tool name backed by a $1,080 billion company, or is it not worth its own metal? We've seen Amazon Basics tools before and even tested some of them here, which have, at least in their pliers, not been so bad that many of you bought them and now they're sold out. So perhaps affordable alternatives are as popular as ever. Let's find out by taking a closer look at and testing some of the pieces from this new Denali brand toolset, a set made by, or probably more realistically for, Amazon themselves. This brand's swing at automotive tools that's only a couple months in the making. This is their 142-piece set, which we paid $85 for. It can be found for less now, it appears, but that's how much we paid for it. With all these chrome shiny bits staring at you, it looks quite comprehensive. Yeah, up here the metric sizes stop at 17 millimeters, whereas SAE goes up to 7/8, which is a bit strange. On the wrench side of things, the sizes go up to 15 millimeters and 5/8 or 16 millimeters on the other end. And the first thing you're going to notice when it comes to these wrenches themselves is that they are wafer thin, like thinner than a bolt head thin. Which, I mean, I realize this is a budget set and thin wrenches do have their place when that's what you need. But here it is next to an average wrench of equal size. The Denali comes out to 6.1 millimeters on the jaw end, whereas the more typical wrench we find to usually be around 8 millimeters in this size, a snap-on being a bit slimmer at 7.5. And here it is next to an old school US Craftsman. We have all of these same size wrenches from our previous testing on combination wrenches, which we can dive into first here. We start by measuring the clearance of this tool, or how much over the wrench is, zeroing the calipers for its advertised size, and we're measuring here in millimeters just to match our past data. We're seeing 0.21 millimeter over. When placing it here on our ranking for now, on this sort of budget end of the crowd, that 0.21 over isn't awesome, but also not criminal. It would get 6 points or middle of the pack sort of stuff. If it finished the rest of our testing today with 6 points in each column, it would finish quite well. But when measuring over pieces from the set, a large clearance is sort of typical in this Denali kit. The 15 millimeter wrench, for example, is 0.27 millimeters over, and the 15 millimeter socket is 0.28, 0.29 millimeter over. You'll also notice how the Denali brand is lasered onto the wrenches. No stamping, but drop forged is stamped. No alloy like chrome vanadium is mentioned. CRV, which, by the way, alloys like 6150 chrome vanadium are very good, is stamped on the sockets along with size, but zero branding on any of the sockets. When these are looked at by themselves, they're basically generic unbranded sockets. But let's see how well those wrenches grip, or if they just slip. Reviews of this tool set are quite positive, but you'll also notice the lion's share of those reviews are through Vine, Amazon's program of giving out products early to popular reviewers. Needing to have a tool background is not a requirement for Vine, and Amazon itself is sort of running the show here. So, personally, I'd prefer if they had a program called Wine, where they gave products out to the biggest complainers and one-star generals out there from review sections, and then these early reviews would mean something, I suppose. But I digress. By measuring bolt tension PSI here, we do 3 tests and show median on screen. We can compare how tight this wrench is able to make this nut and bolt versus other wrenches we've done. We sort these nuts to within 0.02 millimeters of each other, which means about 10% of the ones we purchased get scrapped, but not too bad really. They are closer to each other than we assumed when ordering. We're going to be comparing against an equal-sized Capri Tools wrench here, which finished exactly in the middle of the pack in our past testing. So let's see. So 780, and taking some small metal scraps with it as well. That's not very high. We were able to get one of them up to 799, but we do use the median score per usual. That super narrow jaw not doing this tool any favors, but we do have performance per jaw thickness on this leaderboard as well, so let's take a look. 780 is, well, that's the worst we've seen. We're not going to reorder this whole ranking chart just for This one we're awarding points to for now, but that puts it below the current worst place with 1 point up here, so the Denali is getting 0 points effectively down here. Much of that, I'm sure, is thanks to this thin profile. Maybe it's for better access. I'm sure it's not just about saving a few dollars in raw material, right? Its performance per jaw thickness is 127.9, which is also the worst so far, but practically even with the Indian-made Sun-X down here, which got a 3 in the spread of results we saw, so this one gets a 3 as well. So all this totals a 3-point even average, which, well, it puts it above the Crescent, and only Crescent, just because of the 2000s here. They both have similar performance, the Crescent just happens to be thicker. But what about hardness? Well, when looking at the old Rockwell C hardness scale, the Denali sees some surprising numbers. That's just 36.9 HRC, the same as the cheap Jet Tech that we tested from Amazon as well. That's below the ASME standard for a wrench being classified as a wrench, which means according to the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, this shouldn't really even be sold here. You might remember that while the socket said CRV, an alloy more than capable of achieving this hardness range, the wrenches just say drop forged, which means more often than not they're using, at least in China where it originates, something like 30 CR, or as we call it here in the States, 5130. Roughly, this is just a popular choice due to its availability over there, but here's what that difference would look like: 6150 chrome vanadium up top on each line's comparison versus the 5130 on the bottom. Quite a stark difference. So back on the leaderboard, even though it's scored slightly above the Crescent, it's not really made from traditional wrench material, so I think this would still place it last overall in our opinion. So what about the Denali pieces that do say CRV? Well, the sockets measure, we're showing around 48 HRC, which is decently hard. Not that harder means best, but at least it signifies that it's using an alloy capable of being heat treated to this level, which is a good sign. And the chrome extension, we're measuring that at 45.4, where Harbor Freight examples come in at about 52 to 53, and a snap-on extension at 54 to 55 here. So some difference for sure, but at least above ASME standards for the Denali this time. The ratchets that are included in the set, while certainly big and sort of chunky for their 1/4 inch and 3/8 drive sizes, are not very long to exercise much torque on, but do feel decent. 72 tooth, it's not terrible. When using a cheater bar to maybe break the 3/8 ratchet, the short arm of the ratchet does feel like quite of a hindrance, but we reached 135 foot-pounds, which feels like the most you'd ever be able to put on this one by hand, and it's still operating fine in forward and reverse. But we do want to break some stuff, so let's open this green case of goodies and try out our old friend, the Hex impact adapter. We've gone through our fair share of these when testing impact drivers. Some break instantly, others last quite a few tools worth of testing. Let's see the Denali impact adapter at full beans on a Milwaukee Gen 3 impact driver. So with 3 attempts, it's fine, and in the 4th, it breaks. Trying to remove a 185 foot-pound Titan bolt, it had just tightened, it met its end, which I'd call about average, maybe slightly below average from name brand adapters from your favorite colors at the hardware store, but pretty good, I feel. We've had the best luck ourselves with DeWalt's adapters in this 1/2 inch flavor. They last anywhere from 6 to 15 goes like this. Other brands like the Bosch last not even half of a go on any test that we do, despite it doing fairly well in Project Farms testing. Let us know if you'd like to see a bunch of these tested by us. So there you have it. The wrenches, maybe some of the worst we've seen, and thin enough that you'd be slipping off of almost anything like Bambi, and not made from material that most in the States would call wrench material. The sockets, extensions, and ratchets, can't complain, but nothing to write home about, and the adapters, at least on par with what you would expect from most brands. Given the scant lasering of Denali brand and complete lack of branding on most pieces, it's pretty clear that the private label arm of Amazon just found a good deal on an existing tool set or a manufacturer in general and slapped their name onto their stuff. Seems pretty similar to how they run their Amazon Basics stuff when it comes to tools. Perhaps this Denali line is just more concentrated effort at targeting dads and tool guys alike? You tell us what you think in the comments. Appreciate you joining us for this one. We want to do more focused but perhaps shorter form looks at tools from time to time like this one. Hope you'll join us for those as well. Thanks for watching.